evolves in a flash of unexpected surprise. Can we look back and see a few of these sorts of episodic catharses? Of course we can. Every transformation of the computing world has been a surprise, one that removed the reason for existence of its predecessor depended upon, and which was itself later removed in like manner. The first computers were rare, expensive, and they made redundant legions of people who worked out tables of logarithms to 9 digits by hand. Timeshare destroyed the market for standalone behemoths, and desktop PCs destroyed the market for timeshare. Today it looks as if software as a service is about to destroy the market for desktop PCs. At every stage, the best X ever produced was also the last X ever produced, as it was itself rendered irrelevant by the leading edge of the next phase. My father, who today is for the first time not present on his birthday, had the finest Frieden mechanical desk calculator made. It was even programmable, mechanically programmable, and yet the lousy, truly lousy Bomar brain made mechanical desk calculators irrelevant. I'm sure you can name example after example of the same phenomenon, that of a kind of equilibrium punctuated by the end of the environment on which the most evolved members of that equilibrium, of that environment, depended. This being a talk about the future means that we must examine how this pattern in nature plays itself out against the digital sphere. Note that I said pattern in nature, as that is precisely the mindset I want you to have, that regardless of whether you think of the world as a triumphant creation of some omnipotent God, or, like calculus, the infinite sum of infinitesimal bits from random time series, that the very nature of nature has examples of processes that cannot be other than the kinds of processes we should expect in the digital world. Unless we have become as gods ourselves, some mixture of the unexpected and our adaptations to it will be that of which the future is made. Every invention we make proves either non-viable, which is to say a non-functional mutation within the human ecosystem, or it is viable, which is to say it seizes an hitherto unoccupied niche, either by creating that niche or stealing it from whomever occupies it now. Whether creating or stealing niches does not matter, since over time the number of niches increases, at least until one of those punctuations of the equilibrium occurs. As you know, the rainforests are the oldest biome on Earth, which is to say they've enjoyed the longest run of stability, unlike, say, the boreal forests of Canada, which 10,000 years ago were under a mile of solid ice. As such, rainforests have the greatest number of species, which is to say the greatest number of niches and the most complex interdependencies. 25 acres of Malaysian rainforest will have more species of trees than all of the US and Canada combined. 43 species of ants were found in a single tree in Peru, which is more than in all of the British Isles. The oldest biome in North America, the temperate rainforest of the southern Appalachians, has more species of lungless salamanders than anywhere else on Earth. Yet the equilibrium of the rainforest is being punctuated by a much more recent invasion, namely Homo sapiens with power machinery. Some estimate species diversity in these rainforests is draining away now at the rate of 5 an hour. The important thing to realize here is that to the biome, to the occupier of a niche that was here yesterday and won't be here tomorrow, this change is a surprise. No tree says, time to move. No salamander says, I need to evolve. Evolutionary change depends on this unpredictability. Otherwise, yesterday's winners are also tomorrow's winners, and dominant species just get more dominant. Note that change here is not a synonym for disaster. Some pines have cones that only open after the tree in which they live have been burned down in a forest fire. This kind of opportunism for disaster is something we can see in our world today and every day, and that for every backdoor some worm or virus installs, you can bet your paycheck that there's some other bit of malware that is out searching for the self-same backdoor for its own purposes. A backdoor unused is like a biological niche unoccupied. Nature, both biologic and digital, abhors a vacuum. The backdoor will get used. The only question is by what or by whom. Let's illustrate that specifically. Everyone but everyone defines the 9/11 attack as an out of the nowhere, a black swan, to again use Taleb's terminology. That attack changed everything because it was so unforeseen. It was a physical attack, but we here in the digital world have to deal with digital attacks. Many of us have heard the phrase digital Pearl Harbor, and many of us here wish we hadn't. If we talk to a member of the general public, we are likely to hear something like, look, you miserable paranoid worrywarts, you keep predicting a big problem, and if it was all that likely it would have happened by now. In fact, every day that goes by without something like that happening makes it less likely that it ever will. Would you just stop bothering me? Now, a statement like that we have gone this far without anything big happening is precisely the kind of statement that expects stability to continue, and which is necessary but not sufficient for a punctuation of such stability. If we look at 9/11 as a digital security people would, we might remember that the NIMDA virus appeared the evening of September 18, 2001, a week later. Until that point, we'd never seen a virus that carried more than one mechanism of transmission, and NIMDA had 5. So to begin with, even if we had known everything about each of those 5 methods, including population statistics for the numbers and connectivity of vulnerable hosts, we wouldn't have predicted the ability of NIMDA to move as fast as it did, as we had not thought yet to model the union of multiple vulnerabilities. This, however, is not all. For writers of classic virus attacks, the measure of their success is the energy differential between the first entry to a given target and the second, i.e. the bigger the difference in how hard it is to break in the first time and how easy it is to break in the second time, the bigger the win. And the lowest energy way to maximize that energy differential is to install a backdoor, and of course, therefore, that is exactly what NIMDA did. It installed a new backdoor. Because NIMDA had 5 methods for propagation, and because it was evidently written with speed in mind, NIMDA was also, to that date anyway, the fastest spreading virus we had ever seen. The rate of spread is known amongst infectious people as virulence, and I'll come back to that in a second. As you know, nearly all malware in the wild persists indefinitely. An older virus called E911 was such an example. E911 would cause your modem to dial 911 repeatedly. That is all it did. Now, when I call you on the phone, the circuit stays up until the calling party disconnects. That would be me. When I call 911, however, the circuit stays up until the called party disconnects, and this is a difference that's done at the switch. For the obvious reason that you do not want the intruder to cut the phone line and have the police dispatcher have to say, "Now, whom was I talking to?" For the police to hang up on a 911 call when the calling party has gone away requires a human decision done at human timescale under uncertainty. Because of this, it is possible to saturate a 911 console, and that is precisely what E911 was crafted to do, saturate a 911 console. The E911 virus was old and forgotten on September 18, 2001, but it was still available and on the net, and of course the internet in the fall of 2001 was still dominated by dial-up connections. We got lucky in the simplest, stupidest, dumb luck kind of way. No jackass had the imagination to grab the E911 virus and retarget it to the backdoor that NIMDA was busy installing at warp speed everywhere, while we were all preoccupied with watching CNN 24/7. If someone had done that, then everyone in America would have gotten up the morning of September 19 only to find that there was no emergency service available nationwide. It would have been turned off everywhere and all at once, like a light switch. While that would have been not have been a disaster of a physical sort, I submit that it would have been a grand mal seizure of the public confidence. Clinically, a grand mal seizure of the public confidence is the definition of terror.